Most people think retirement is a straight line. You save a little, then a little more, then a little more after that, and eventually, someday, you'll have enough. But here's the secret nobody tells you. The moment you cross that $500,000 threshold, something almost magical starts happening to your money. Something that completely rewrites the rules of how wealth works for you. So, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what shifts when you hit this number. And by the end, you'll understand why this milestone isn't just a bigger bank balance. It's a completely different financial reality. Let's start with the number that changes everything. And it's not $500,000 itself. It's what $500,000 does while you sleep. At a conservative 8% average annual market return, which is historically realistic over long periods, here's what your money earns in a single year depending on how much you have saved.
$10,000 saved? Your money earns you $800 this year. $100,000 saved? Your money earns you $8,000 this year. $500,000 saved? Your money earns you $40,000.
Let that sink in. At $500,000, your portfolio is generating the equivalent of a full-time salary just by existing. That $40,000 isn't your contribution. It's the market rewarding you for the money you already have. And next year, that $40,000 gets added to your balance, and that full amount earns 8%, and the number gets bigger and bigger and faster. Below $500,000, compound interest is theoretical. You read about it, you believe in it intellectually. At $500,000, compound interest is physical. You feel it, you see it. It becomes the dominant force in your financial life, often outpacing what you're even contributing yourself. This is why financial experts call this zone the compounding cliff. Once you go over the edge, gravity does most of the work. Now, here's where the $500,000 milestone gets really interesting, and this is the part most people have never heard of. There's something in retirement planning called the 4% rule. Here's what it means. Research shows that if you withdraw 4% of your portfolio every year, you have an extremely high probability of your money lasting 30 years or more, even accounting for market crashes and bad years. Now, do the math on $500,000.
4% of $500,000 is $20,000 per year. That's about $1,667 every single month, generated by your portfolio without you having to work, without you touching the principal in most market conditions. That's not retirement money. That is freedom money.
Now, $1,677 a month may not cover everything, but here's the shift in thinking that $500,000 forces. You stop asking, can I ever retire? You start asking, how much work is optional now? Maybe that $1,667 covers your grocery bill, your car payment, your utilities. Suddenly, the job you kept because you had no choice becomes a job you keep because you want to. That is not a small change. That is an identity-level transformation, and it compounds socially, emotionally, and psychologically, not just financially. Here's something the financial industry almost never talks about. Saving money below a certain threshold feels like deprivation. You're cutting lattes, skipping vacations, saying no over and over again, watching a number that barely moves. But something almost neurological happens around the $500,000 mark. You stop feeling like you're saving from fear and start feeling like you're building from strength. Studies on financial psychology have consistently shown that people with a significant financial cushion, generally defined as enough to survive 1 to 3 years without income, make fundamentally better decisions. They negotiate higher salaries. They leave toxic jobs. They start businesses. They take calculated risks. $500,000 is not just money. It is psychological armor. It changes how you walk into a meeting. It changes how you respond when your boss disrespects you. It changes the math on every single life decision because the cost of failure is no longer catastrophic. This is what wealthy people mean when they say money buys freedom. They don't mean yachts, they mean options. And $500,000 is the point at which options start appearing where there used to be walls. Here's what I mean. Before $500,000, your priority is accumulation. You're dumping money in. Index funds, consistent contributions, time in the market. Simple, aggressive, hands off. After $500,000, a second priority enters the picture. Protection. Because now you have something worth protecting. A 30% market crash when you have $20,000 saved costs you $6,000. Painful, but recoverable in months. A 30% market crash when you have $500,000 saved costs you $150,000. That's not just a number. That's potentially years of contributions gone. This is why investors with significant assets start thinking differently about portfolio construction. They think about asset allocation, balancing growth investments with more stable ones. Sequence of returns risk, the danger of bad market years right before or after you retire. Tax efficiency, because at $500,000, tax drag on investments can cost you tens of thousands. Estate planning, because now you have something worth leaving behind. Once you cross the $500,000 threshold, the investment strategies available to you and the right investment strategies for you change dramatically. None of this means you become conservative. It means you become strategic. The game isn't just about getting more chips on the table. It's about not losing the ones you've already won. There's one more thing that changes at $500,000 that almost nobody talks about. The speed at which wealth grows from this point forward is categorically different from anything before it.
Here's a real example. Imagine you started at zero and took 15 years to save your first $500,000. That took discipline, sacrifice, consistency over a decade and a half. How long do you think it takes to get from $500,000 to $1 million? At an 8% annual return, and assuming zero additional contributions, you'll double your money in approximately 9 years. You did it once in 15. The market does it again in 9, with no extra effort from you. And then from 1 million to 2 million, another 9 years. But now $80,000 a year is being generated in returns alone. This is the momentum effect. And it's the reason people who cross the $500,000 milestone and stay there tend to reach financial independence faster than they ever imagined. The first $500,000 is the hardest, and then the money starts doing the heavy lifting. So let's bring this all together. $500,000 in retirement savings isn't just a number, it's a threshold. It's the point where compounding stops being a concept and starts being a paycheck. It's the point where the 4% rule stops being theoretical and starts being real monthly income. It's the point where your psychology shifts from scarcity to strength, and the decisions you make about your career, your relationships, and your life begin to reflect that. It's the point where the investment game changes, and protecting what you've built becomes just as important as growing it. And it's the point where momentum takes over, where the second $500,000 comes faster than the first, and the third faster than the second. None of this means you need $500,000 to be happy. It means you need to understand what's waiting on the other side of that number, so you stay motivated, stay consistent, and don't make the mistake of thinking it's out of reach. Because the math is patient. The math will wait for you. The only question is, are you building toward it? If this video helped you understand something about money that nobody ever explained clearly, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Flat Broke to Free. I will see you there.